Back in 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's was first released, and with it came a brilliant and totally not toxic at all community. And everyone was fascinated with dissecting the lore of this new horror game. And what was the first thing these esteemed elite game theorists came up with? Well, they figured that Foxy was probably a good guy. Yes, one of the first FNAF theories to gain popularity was that Foxy was on the player's side the whole time. This idea was heavily based on his jump scare, literally just being him slowly entering the room. The whole idea pretty much died down after FNAF 2 was released. But what if I told you that this theory died too early? Like 9 years too early to be exact. Because today, I'm going to be putting the missing piece in the puzzle to prove that Foxy is still a good guy in 2023. To get things started, we need to revisit Five Nights 1. In this game, Foxy will slowly leave Pirate's Cove when the player isn't directly viewing him. And if the player doesn't check on this camera frequently enough, Foxy will dash towards the office, resulting in a game over. Now this is pretty interesting. People assume Foxy behaves this way because he's more sneaky or more cautious of the cameras. He isn't exactly supposed to be seen, what with his show being out of order. However, there is a crucial detail that is being missed here, and it all becomes clear when we ask this simple question. How could Foxy know when the player is viewing him? There would have to be some visual or audio cue emanated by the cameras while the player is viewing them. Now, there is a sound cue in-game whenever the player switches cams, but I would just chalk this up to static coming from the monitor, and not from the physical cameras. If not audio, there must at least be some visual signal given off by an individual camera when it's in use. A visual cue which lets Foxy know when the player is viewing him in Pirate's Cove, a sign that tells Foxy he is actively being monitored. And it's this crucial detail that reveals the animatronic's true nature. If Foxy knows that the cameras are being used to watch him, then he realizes there must be a security guard. He wouldn't for a second assume an endoskeleton is up in the office monitoring the cams. Only a person could do that. All of this leads me to an unsettling conclusion. Foxy is aware of what's really happening here. He knows that the player is just an ordinary night guard, and he realizes that the other animatronics are actively hunting an innocent man. From the perspective of Foxy, that camera being active in his room is a sign that the player is still alive, still operating the cameras. The player has to keep checking up on Foxy because it lets Foxy check up on the player. And if you go too long without viewing Pirate's Cove, Foxy will assume that something has gone wrong, prompting him to make a quick sprint into the office to check up on things himself. And here things get even more interesting. If the player closes the door on Foxy, then he will begin to knock on the door. Now, it may seem more like banging on the door, but this only further depicts his concern for the night guard's well-being. He's just trying to make sure everything is alright in there. Kinda like the SWAT team outside my house right now. Of course, if the player opens the door, it results in a jump scare. However, Foxy's jump scare differs in that he doesn't attack the player, and instead just leans into the door, tilting his head in curiosity. All other animatronics very clearly attack the player in some form, with the exception of Golden Freddy, but as an apparition, there's not much he can do physically anyways. And so Foxy stands alone and not directly attacking the player. As for why the game ends, the original theory simply put it as the player having a heart attack from both the ear-piercing screech as well as the overall stress of the night. When you break down Foxy's in-game mechanics and jump scare, it's easy to see that he's innocent. Foxy knows the player is no endoskeleton, but that he is the night guard, the person tasked with keeping watch of everything and keeping this pizzeria safe, and that he is unjustly being hunted down by the other animatronics. At this point, you may be thinking, if Foxy is so aware that the player is an innocent person, then why does he even bother trying to enter the office so much? Surely he realizes he's only making it harder for the night guard to manage all the animatronics. Also, why would Foxy be so concerned with the well-being of the night guard anyways? He doesn't have any reason to believe the night guard is a good guy. I mean, there's no video titled proving the security guard is a good guy in 2023. But I believe the answers to this lie in a previous tragedy that Foxy has experienced. And to fully explain this, we will need to move on to Five Nights 2. It's in FNAF 2 that we first experience the death minigames. These minigames depict some of the most gruesome events and tragedies that ever took place in these restaurants. One of these games, Foxy Go Go Go, involves Foxy going out to greet children, only for them all to be dead. The purple guy can also be seen here, just watching Foxy and smiling. See, Foxy realizes the importance of security. 5 kids were able to go missing and were brutally murdered because of the lack of proper security in these pizzerias. He wants the security guard to succeed because, well, someone has to protect this place in the event of another killer. I mean, if someone breaks in and there's no night guard to catch them, then more tragedies will occur. Foxy witnessed an avoidable tragedy firsthand, and so he knows this better than anyone. But then why does Foxy blatantly kill the player in FNAF 2? Well, it's actually really simple, as Foxy's in-game mechanics again reveal his true nature. Think about how the majority of animatronics work in this game. You put the Freddy mask on and they think you're just another one of them. But Foxy is immune to the Freddy mask. It may seem like he simply doesn't buy it, but in actuality he does. He thinks you're an animatronic. He thinks you're one of them. And Foxy, being the good-hearted individual that he is, attacks you, because he sees an animatronic in the position where the night guard should be. He assumes you have killed the real night guard, and lunges for the attack. But there's something else in this game, another Fox animatronic to be exact, Mangle. And oh, what's that? Mangle's the only animatronic in FNAF 2 who will enter your office and do absolutely nothing? Why, that would be correct, my friend. The way Mangle works is that they will come in from the vents and then hang upside down on the ceiling of the office. Upon entering the office, Mangle will randomly attack the player at any given moment, resulting in game over. It's true Mangle might kill you, but there's also a chance they will just chill up there watching you until 6 a.m. All other animatronics left unchecked will harm you, either directly or indirectly in the case of Balloon Boy. Mangle, on the other hand, may just let you live. But why even bring this up? Foxy and Mangle are separate entities. Yes, this is true. However, Mangle was most certainly meant to be the toy model for Foxy. And with Foxy as their model, it's undeniable that Mangle is also a good guy. But we can't just stop there. I'm not proving why Foxy is innocent in 2014. I have to account for the entire timeline, up until this very moment here. And so we continue on to Five Nights 3. You know what's funny about FNAF 3? The Phantom animatronics. They just kind of show up, jump scare you, and leave. And won't you know it? Foxy appears in this game as one of these phantoms. However, just like all of the rest of them, he isn't real and can't hurt the player. He's simply in the player's head, a hallucination. And because of this, it's an inaccurate portrayal of the character, crafted from the mind of someone who fears him. The phantoms are simply a figment of the night guard's imagination, and can't be used to judge the true character of, well, the real animatronic characters. And of course, imaginary beings, feared or not, can't actually hurt you. No, I will not check if the doorknob is on for the 15th time. No one's there. Get out of my head. 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 On the topic of imaginary beings that can't actually hurt you, this idea should also apply to Five Nights 4. You know, since it was very obvious that this game was originally meant to take place in a dream. I mean, seriously, all the characters are called nightmares, the bedroom is laid out like a hospital, and Scott practically confirmed Dream Theory to be true when he brought up the Toy Chica action figure missing her beak. I could easily chalk up the Nightmare Foxy to simply being, well, a nightmare because of Dream Theory. But after the fan backlash surrounding the theory and the release of Sister Location, which retconned the story of FNAF 4, Dream Theory was no longer canon. And I'm not here to prove that Foxy was a good guy in 2016. I'm proving that Foxy's a... But even without Dream Theory, proving that our good old pirate friend is an innocent man in this game is easy. I mean, look at the guy. He doesn't even have a head. Concerning Nightmare Foxy, well, By this point, there seems to be a trend, as this character again has a jump scare that doesn't kill you. When Nightmare Foxy enters the closet, he will have many stages before attacking the player, the final stage of which is Foxy's head screeching at the player. But this doesn't result in the player's death. No, all you have to do here is close the closet and Foxy will lower his temper, eventually reverting back to a plushy version of himself. And whether this is a substitution jutsu or an actual transformation, this little guy could do no wrong. So here we have another instance of a Foxy animatronic giving the character a fright, but not actually harming them. And let's be honest, this dude's probably just mad that a certain Michael Afton removed his head. Absolutely despicable behavior. Also, Nightmare Mangle is in this game and behaves the exact same way. And I would just say that Nightmare Mangle isn't even canon to begin with, but that has also been retconned. I sure do love the direction this series has taken. But what about Sister Location then? To which I answer, what about it? Foxy isn't even in this game. Although, Funtime Foxy is. And you know what's so interesting about Funtime Foxy? He is the only animatronic whose jump scare is not only canon, but also does not result in the player's death. On night 3, Funtime Foxy will jump scare the player no matter what, but leave them alive. All of their animatronics in Sister Location will just kill the player, resulting in a game over. And this is just straight up canon. Night 3 will always end this way. Funtime Foxy is just progressing you through the game, which is incredibly nice of him considering how tedious Sister Location is. I mean, don't even get me started on night 4. Ugh. And don't worry, we'll see more of Funtime Foxy shortly. But first we have to take a detour to Pizzeria Simulator. To which I say, yeah, he ain't in this one. I mean, Rockstar Foxy's there, but more on that later. Yeah, now what they want you to think is that Foxy just wasn't haunted anymore at this point in the timeline, or that he wasn't important enough to be one of the 4 animatronics called into the pizzeria. But in actuality, Foxy was invited, but abstained from joining, instead retiring in Japan. More on that later. At this point, we've seen time after time Foxy being the only animatronic to look out for the player, and even give them mercy. From FNAF 2 through Sister Location, you can even survive all Foxy animatronics entering your room. Mangle might not kill you, the Phantoms don't kill you, Nightmare Foxy has a non-lethal jump scare, and Funtime Foxy canonically lets you live. And the original pirate himself never outright attacks the player in his own jump scare. And this is really going to be a turning point in the video because, yeah, no, this trend still holds up. Ultimate Custom Night. Remember Rockstar Foxy? Yeah, he's here, and is the only animatronic who goes out of his way to help the player. Whenever he shows up, he will give the player the choice of 10 fast coins, soundproofing the office, gaining 1% power, or resetting the temperature to 60 degrees. And these aren't just small services. Sometimes the difference of just 1% of power will make or break a UCN run. So our good pal is treating us good in this game. Granted, he will attack on rare occasions, but hey, we all have a bad day. Funtime Foxy also reappears in this game, and all he wants is for you to see his show, which might I add is quite the performance. And if you don't watch your show at the exact time specified, he will jump scare you. I would definitely say this is justified, being that this is his entire livelihood. And like what, the player can't even spare a moment to watch his friend's show? Well, in this game, actually, yes. But no! Funtime Foxy is just a struggling artist, and is totally justified in taking out his anger on his ignorant and emotionally unavailable friend. Not cool, Mr. Player-san. Not cool. But then what about the classics? Foxy and Mangle also appear here, and there's no way they could be redeemed in this game solely being aggressive characters, right? Well, there is a reason they're so aggressive towards the player. And it's because the player in Ultimate Custom Night is none other than William Afton, the killer, the purple guy himself. Some of the later animatronics, like Rockstar Foxy, may not be aware of this, but Foxy and Mangle were there. They know this man. They saw what he did, and now is their chance to enact their justice and avenge the dead children once and for all. Now, the observant audience members here may be saying, well, if the player is William Afton, How come he's also going up against William Afton? Twice! No, 3 times! Oh my god. Purple guy is phone guy in 2023? Well, not to get too philosophical here, but the way I look at it is Afton is simply being haunted by the idea of what he became. There is one other area where Foxy appears in this game, and it's not within the gameplay, but instead the cutscenes. The Bear and Fox anime cutscene, to be exact. And in this cutscene, Foxy is very much depicted as the villain, with Freddy being the heroic samurai who's going to save the day. But there's something off about this cutscene. The subtitles, the translations from Japanese to English, are incorrect. They're not even remotely accurate to what's actually being said. And because there's no Japanese people to verify the true translation here, we can only assume that this is just a hit piece on Foxy to make him look bad. This is propaganda, guys. This isn't... It's a mistranslation. And in actuality, Foxy is probably the good guy. Source, trust me, bro. Moving past UCN, we enter a new era of FNAF. One that's a lot less under Scott's influence and, in my opinion, a changing point for the worse. A lot of ideas and themes from the older games kind of get forgotten or just straight up die here. But Foxy's innocence is not one of those things. Help wanted. This installment of FNAF features VR remakes of many of the previous games. FNAF 1, 2, and 3 are included, alongside minigames resembling those of 4 and Sister Location. But these remakes don't go without making significant and even character-breaking changes. Specifically, the VR rendition of FNAF 1 depicts none other than Foxy, charging at the player and actually attacking them. But if you've made it this far into this dive into insanity, then you already know why this doesn't disprove the theory. FNAF VR takes place in essentially a propaganda piece for Fazbear's Pizza. It actively claims the events of the previous games did not happen, and creates a simulation of such quote-unquote horror stories. Foxy in any of these minigames is simply a misrepresentation of the character. He's depicted in the way that people thought he acted, when in reality he was an upstanding and helpful guy. I mean, when you really get down to it, this game is even attempting to say that nothing bad ever happened in the pizzerias, so even if you were to believe the game itself, Foxy would still be innocent since he would never have been a vengeful, violent monster in the first place. And so even in this very different installment of the series, Foxy's still a good guy. And there it is. In every single one of these games, it is undeniable that our good pal Foxy, and all iterations of him, are morally upstanding and merciful animatronics who have your best interests in mind. Foxy is indeed a good guy in 2020. What's that? I didn't talk about security breach? Listen here, you little shit. Did you see a fox in that game? No, exactly. Oh wait, what's that? Foxy's a part of the blob? Oh, well, see, that's really funny, because the blob doesn't kill you, and instead saves you from burn trap. Even in the games he isn't in, Foxy is still a good guy. In 2023. But hey, that's just a theory.